Welcome to this episode of The Wisdom of Paramahansa Yogananda, brought to you by Self-Realization Fellowship, where each week you can receive inspiration and guidance from Paramahansa Yogananda's Kriya Yoga teachings.
The subject of this episode is The Divine Nature of Christ by Brother Kartikananda.
Good morning again. Today we're going to talk about the divine nature of Jesus Christ. And we'll talk about three aspects of this topic. First is his divine nature and the Christ consciousness of Jesus. Then we'll talk about one of the most important aspects of his mission and his teaching, forgiveness and compassion. And then we'll finally talk about the true meaning of Christmas. It's a good time to talk about that, I think. So I want to begin with a story that you've all heard many times probably. And that's the story of the resurrection of Lazarus. And this displays the divine nature of Christ, of Jesus, in such a dramatic fashion. And we'll talk about the story afterwards, but it's one of the most powerful stories in the Bible. Lazarus was a very dear friend of Jesus. His sisters, Mary and Martha, they sent word to him that Lazarus was deathly ill. And they said, "Please, come and heal Lazarus, Jesus. We know you can. Please come and heal him." But he delayed his journey. And he said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that the God's Son may be glorified through it." So there was something else going on Jesus knew about. There was something about to happen, and he was indicating that to them. They were probably confused, because by the time he arrived in Bethany, Lazarus had been in the tomb already for 4 days. Martha met Jesus and expressed her grief, saying, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus reassured her, "Your brother will rise again." Deeply moved by the sorrow of Mary, Martha, and the mourners, Jesus went to the tomb. He commanded the stone be rolled away, and then he prayed to the Father. He said, thanking him for hearing his prayer, and then he called out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" Lazarus emerged from the tomb. Can you imagine? So this not only demonstrated the divinity of Jesus and the power that he had over death, it foreshadowed his own resurrection. And it strengthened the faith of many witnesses there and highlighted his divine authority. And from this story we see, like in the life of all the great ones, they often have a very deep spiritual significance. And this is just one story from the life of Jesus. There are many. He was ordained to perform many miracles in his life, as some of the great ones do. And to us, miracles seem so extraordinary, right? Beyond our understanding, just something that we can't comprehend. But to the masters who are here on a certain mission, it's just righteousness. They are being commanded to show these things to us for a purpose. Paramahansa Yogananda said, "Miracles performed by great saints may be miracles to us, but not to them. When you know that mind is the power that creates this universe, there is nothing you cannot do." Nothing. So you see, these divine ones like Jesus Christ, they've developed themselves. They've resurrected themselves from human consciousness into divine consciousness. And if it be the will of God, they perform miracles to show us there is a deeper reality. This is the purpose of miracles. And he attained this state, this deeper consciousness, by practice of scientific meditation techniques. And he taught those to his disciples. Yoganandaji tells us he did. He taught scientific meditation to his disciples. Talking a little bit more about miracles, Yoganandaji says, when a person by unshakable concentration can visualize any image or object with closed eyes, he gradually learns to do the same with open eyes. Then by further development of concentration, he can connect with God's all-powerful consciousness and can materialize his thought into an object, perceived not only by himself, but by others also. This is the way that Christ created a new bodily life consciousness in Lazarus. So, miracles, like I said, are not really miracles for the divine ones. They're a result of spiritual, scientific laws that are deeper than human laws. And they've mastered those laws. And for one such as Jesus, these feats are not magic. They're scientific. And Jesus was very clear. We can do just what he has done. We can do all of these things that he did. If it be so ordained, if it's in God's plan. But can you imagine if us now, in our current state of consciousness, could perform miracles? It might be a little bit scary, if we're led by whims and habits and desires. I command the universe to create me a donut. No, a dozen donuts. That's what I would do. But can you imagine, it could be a little chaotic if we could all perform miracles like this. So there has to be a certain understanding, a certain wisdom, a certain level of consciousness that we've attained before we can do miracles. But along the way, many big and small things we can do, we can manifest along the path of our own self-realization. Isn't it true? When we put our minds to something, if we really go over and over and over and think about that, Yoganandaji talks about that a lot. The power of divine will, rotating something over and over again in our minds. We can manifest that, can't we? Even from the beginning, we can manifest. Certainly not the same as a divine one like Jesus, because he'd attained a deeper state of consciousness, this state of Christ consciousness. And let's talk a little bit about what that means. What is Christ consciousness? Because in the life of Jesus, there's a lot of misunderstanding about his state of consciousness. The two things have been confounded in modern religion, for the most part. And it's important to understand the distinction between Jesus and Christ, because there holds great hope for us, great hope for humanity in this distinction. Paramahansa Yogananda, in his most eloquent way, had said the truth this way, and it's so simple. He said, there is a distinguishing difference of meaning between Jesus and Christ. His given name was Jesus. His honorific title was Christ. In his little human body called Jesus was born the vast Christ consciousness, the omniscient intelligence of God, omnipresent in every part and particle of creation. He went on to say, Christ is the joy of meditation. It is his perception you feel in the deepest hours of silence. And this is my wish for you, that you may bring that Christ into your heart every day, every hour. So you see, God did not put his consciousness into just one person, into Jesus. He put it into all of creation, into every single one of us. We can attain Christ consciousness. The only difference between us and Jesus or any of these masters here, that they made the effort to climb the ladder of self-realization. Through many lives, through previous incarnations, they made the effort, through meditation, through right activity, to climb that ladder. And this is the whole purpose of our lives in self-realization fellowship. It's to climb that ladder of self-realization. And it's laid out perfectly for us in the SRF lessons. It's up to us to follow it. And as we meditate, slowly but surely, we get more and more glimpses of that divine place we're looking for, the happiness, the joy. This is a spiritual science. Make just a little effort. You don't have to sit for hours and hours and hours. Yes, we have an 8-hour meditation to celebrate Jesus' life, as we should. But make a little effort every day. Make a little effort. And more, that happiness, that peace, that wisdom that we're all looking for will grow inside of us. Along the way, there's steps for us to attain, and one of those is Christ consciousness, as Jesus obtained, like I said before. We're close. Don't get discouraged. If you're here, you're close. You have all the tools in front of you to go all the way. It's up to you. It's up to us. I'm including myself. It's up to us to make the effort. Christ did, and then after that Christ consciousness state, he went beyond to cosmic consciousness, one with God. And having achieved that, God asked him to come back to earth to play this divine role. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a big ask for me. If I get out of here, I don't know if I'm coming back. I guess you're in such a state then, you're in bliss consciousness, you'll do what God asks. But in my current understanding, I don't know. I'm not sure. But he came back for us, and he took on a body again to show us the way home, to teach humanity about Christ consciousness, to display his Christ consciousness for all of us. And Yogananda Ji has told us that Jesus, with Mahavatar Babaji, are guiding us on this path through the teachings that we find here in SRF. They're helping guide this work. And all the divine incarnations, such as Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, they come to teach us. They come to teach us that there is more than what we see with our senses, that there's a deeper reality. There is more to life than we can see. And these great ones are called avatars. Yogananda Ji says, the Lord in the sacred Hindu Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, declares, whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I incarnate as an avatar. In visible form I appear from age to age to protect the virtuous and to destroy evil doing in order to reestablish righteousness. The same one glorious infinite consciousness of God, the universal Christ consciousness, becomes familiarly apparelled in the individuality of an enlightened soul, graced with a distinguishing personality and godly nature appropriate to the times and purpose of the incarnation. So Jesus did that for us. And without these avatars, we would be lost. We would be lost in delusion and darkness. They come to show us the way home. They come to show us the way home. And one of the central messages in the life of Jesus Christ was the path of forgiveness and compassion. And that's the second point today we'll talk about. He came to show us what that deeper meaning of forgiveness and compassion was. And it can be a great light, a great example. It is for me. I mean, Christ himself, he performed the greatest act of forgiveness someone could ever do when he was being crucified, and he said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They were taking his life, and he forgave them. That's a lot. That's a lot. We sometimes find it hard to forgive when someone looks at us the wrong way, or someone cuts us off on the freeway. Or maybe there's a certain tone of voice we don't like. Can we forgive? Christ is a great example in this season of Christmas. Tune in with him. I've been trying to practice that myself. Tune in with him and forgive more and easier and more quickly. It makes us happier, I promise. Here's a beautiful story about forgiveness that I wanted to share with you. There once was a woman who loved Jesus, and sometimes in her evening meditations, she confided to her priest that Jesus appeared to her. Jesus came to her. The priest was skeptical, and he decided to test her, and he said, "Let me ask you to ask Jesus something the next time he appears to you." And he said, "Ask him what terrible sin your priest committed when he was in the seminary." This sin, the priest had never told anybody in confession. He kept it to himself, and even though he'd lived a really exemplary life since then, he really just never felt worthy. He felt a lot of shame about this sin. And he thought, I'll never really have God's peace and joy. And the woman said, "Sure, I'll ask." A few days later, she returned and asked to see him again. Greeting her, the priest said, "Well, did Jesus come to you in your meditation?" "Yes, he did," the woman said. "And did you ask him what sin I committed in the seminary?" the priest went on. "Yes, I asked him," the woman said. "Well, what did he say?" The woman softly replied, "He said, 'I don't remember.'" Christ doesn't remember. God doesn't remember. As long as we go out and sin no more, right? As long as we try to lift ourselves up, it doesn't matter how many mistakes we make. Keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. Keep trying. Keep making the effort. God doesn't remember. And doesn't it invoke a warm feeling of who and what Jesus Christ was? So kind, so approachable. And that's the attitude that's needed today, isn't it? More and more forgiveness, compassion, understanding. There's so much strife and misunderstanding in the world. Are we adding to it, or are we adding forgiveness and compassion and love? So during this season when we celebrate his birthday, we have an opportunity to tune in with that deeper forgiveness and compassion and practice it in our lives. Practice it. And let's just move on to, during this season, to reflect on the true meaning and purpose of Christmas. That's my third point today. The true meaning and purpose of Christmas. Sri Dayamata, our third president, said this. She said, "The purpose of observing Christmas, as with the birthday of any avatar, is to honor and to resolve to emulate the one in whom God, as Christ consciousness, was fully manifest on earth. It is not enough at Christmas time merely to light a candle or to decorate a tree and exchange gifts. These customs are beautiful and proper. They express the spirit of goodwill, friendship, and love. But if we do these things and forget Christ, then Christmas is empty. We're tired and we're glad when it's over." Can you relate to the stress of the holidays? There's a lot sometimes, right? If we don't tune in with that deeper meaning, it doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to be. It's up to us. We need to tune in with those deeper vibrations of Christ in meditation. Honor his life in silence, in trying to attain what he attained. And I wanted to share this story about one person's struggles with the holidays. There was once a man who didn't believe in God, and he didn't hesitate to let others know how he felt about religion and religious holidays, like Christmas. His wife did believe, and she raised her kids to believe in God and Jesus. One Christmas Eve, his wife was taking the children to the Christmas Eve service in the farm community, in which they lived. She asked her husband to come, but as usual, he said, "The Christmas story is nonsense. Why would God lower himself to come to earth as a man? That's ridiculous." She and the children went, and he stayed home. So that night the wind began to blow and the snow was coming down. There was a blizzard. And as he looked out the window, he could see a blinding snowstorm, and he sat down by the fire. Something hit the window all of a sudden. Bang, thump. Then a second thump. He couldn't see what it was. When the storm let up a little, he went outside to see what could have been beating on his window. What was that? And in the field near his house was a flock of geese. They were flying, and the blizzard had grounded them. They couldn't go on any further. They were lost, stranded on his farm without food and shelter. And he really wanted to help them. He felt concern for these geese and wanted to take care of them. He thought, my barn would be a perfect place for them to hide out during the storm. He opened the doors, and he was hoping that they would just notice the open doors and fly in. But they didn't. They didn't. They just fluttered around, and he wasn't sure what to do. He was scared for them. He went out into the house, brought out some bread, broke it up. They still didn't catch on. They didn't get it, that the barn was safety. Now he's getting frustrated. He got behind them, tried to shoo them, but all he accomplished was to scare them further. They only became frightened and scattered all around. Nothing he could do would get them into the barn. And he was thinking to himself, why don't they follow me? He was puzzled. Can't they see this is the only place where they can survive? And he thought for a moment, if only I were a goose, then I could save them. Suddenly he had an idea. He went into his barn, got one of his own geese, and carried it in his arms. He went behind the flock, and then he let it go, and it flew right into the barn. And the other geese followed. The other geese followed that goose, one by one. And he stood silently for a moment as the words he had spoken a few minutes earlier replayed in his mind. If only I were a goose, then I could save them. Then he thought about what he had said to his wife. Suddenly, it all made sense. This is what God had done. We were the geese, blind, lost, perishing. God sent his Son so he could show us the way to safety. That was the meaning of Christmas, he realized. As the winds and snow died down, his soul became quiet. He understood finally what Christmas was all about and why Christ had come. Years of doubt and disbelief left him. He fell to his knees and he prayed his first real prayer. Thank you, Lord, for coming in human form to get me out of this world and leading me to a better one. Isn't that wonderful? With wonderful symbology about why Christ has come for us to show us the way home, his lost geese. During this season, we can send our thanks to Jesus and the great masters for coming to shepherd us home. And it's important for us to do that, to tune in. How else can we remind ourselves about the true meaning of Christmas? Sri Dayamata said, during this holy season, let our consciousness revolve around these thoughts. Lord, teach me to walk in the footsteps of Christ. Let me try to forgive my fellow man, particularly at Christmas time. And let every day be Christmas. Let me remove from my heart all feelings of hatred and ill will. Let me go to those whom I have hurt and to those who have hurt me and put forth my hand in loving friendship, as did Christ. And help me, O Lord, to strive more earnestly to commune with Thee, Thou who art the beloved of my soul. So for a moment here, we're back to my second point, talking about the right attitude during this Christmas season, one of forgiveness and compassion. Let's make a greater effort towards these divine qualities of forgiveness and compassion. Let's free ourselves from lingering feelings of anger, resentment. Who wants that? Who wants to live that way? I don't. I don't like it. I don't like being angry or resentful. And she ends, Daima ends her quote saying, these attitudes we should practice during Christmas time, and she ends it talking about communion. That's how we can get to that state of consciousness to practice those divine qualities. Communion, meditation. Meditation. If we want to find peace and forgiveness and understanding, those can be found in the silence of meditation. Yogananda Ji tells us clearly how to know the real Christ. He said, if you want to really feel Christ and know Him, meditate. Christ is within you, and you can realize this truth by using the ancient yoga techniques of meditation. Very simple. Very simple. So instead of talking too much more about techniques, I want to practice a visualization, something you can do during this holiday season, and have an experience of Christ right within you. So before practicing, let me read this truth, this passage from the Bible found in Yogananda's seminal work on the Bible, The Second Coming of Christ. He said, "As the Father hath loved, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. If ye keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full." So Christ Jesus in this discourse is talking to his disciples about love and the fact that if they kept in tune with the Christ consciousness and they live a pure life, they would always feel the divine love which God pours out at all times. At all times. So now let's practice this visualization. Sit up straight. Close your eyes. Listen to these words. And practice seeing them in reality. Try to imagine the love spoken of by Jesus in these verses. Close your eyes, put your attention on the heart, and feel the greatest love that you have ever felt for any person. Let that love saturate every cell of your body. Now expand the feeling of love, like an encircling sphere, embracing your family, friends, all your loved ones. Feel your love ever increasing. Include in that sphere all the people in your city, then all of your country. Now everything in the world is bathed in that love. The whole earth, the solar system, the far-flung galaxies and island universes, everything is floating in this vast sphere of love. Feel, meditate on, merge yourself in that love which permeates and upholds the infinitudes of manifestation. A demonstrable presence of God's heartbeat of bliss, setting the pace of cosmic harmony and unity, and known to the devotee as the all-in-all fulfillment. Paramahansa Yogananda explains, the love felt in the heart at the beginning of this visualization is human love. And the love that expanded until it encompassed everything is the universal love of Christ. the infinite love of God. The love that most persons feel for dearest family and friends, Jesus felt for the whole world and every living being. The Christ consciousness that encompasses everything in its love was born in the body of Jesus. So what we felt during the meditation, just for a little bit, is the divine nature of Christ. This is the essence of his divine nature. It's always there for us to tap into. We just must pause. Pause and make a little effort to silence the mind. So to recap, today we talked about the divine nature and Christ consciousness of Jesus. He's a divine incarnation who was sent to guide humanity, to guide us. His role, he demonstrated divine love, forgiveness, compassion, and his mission was to show us the way to spiritual realization. The consciousness he attained is attainable by all through meditation and spiritual practice. The Christ that the divine qualities he demonstrated, forgiveness and compassion, he really came to display that for us and to show us the importance. So let's, during this Christmas season, let's release our anger, our resentments, our troubles, have more sympathy, extend our loves to others. Follow that example set by Jesus. And last, let's reflect on the true meaning of Christmas. Let's remember the true meaning of Christmas and the significance. Let's create an inner environment of peace and love through devotional meditation and focusing on the divine essence of the season. I'll end with this quote. Christ must be invited through devotional meditation into a cathedral of inner silence. The newborn Christ consciousness must be awakened in the cradle of each heart. So instead of taking this coming Christmas as just an occasion for material happiness, make your own heart a cradle wherein Christ can be born.
This has been a production of Self-Realization Fellowship, a non-profit organization founded by Paramahansa Yogananda in 1920. For more information about Self-Realization Fellowship and Paramahansa Yogananda, please visit yogananda.org.